Right. We're going to crack on with what has been tragic news that you're probably waking up to. And that is that One Direction star Liam Payne has died at the age of just 31. That was after falling from a balcony of a hotel in Buenos Aires.
Yes, fans across the world have come together to pay tribute to the star who helped define a generation of pop music.
Well, he'd been to Argentina to support former bandmate Niall Horan, who was on tour there and had been posting social media until right before the shocking accident.
Well, joining us now is showbiz journalist Hayley Palmer. Good to see you this morning, Hayley, but such sad and shocking news that many people will be waking up to this morning.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I'm a One Direction fan myself, and I still can't believe what we're actually saying here. I mean, if you watch The X Factor, you know, he came through. He actually had 2 auditions on The X Factor. Simon Cowell told him to go away the first time because he was too young, but it was kind of meant to be because this band formed. And, you know, they've had massive success and their fans are absolutely diehard. So to wake up this morning and hear this news must be so incredibly sad. Now, I do know that he did suffer with ADHD. I know that he had kidney problems. I do know that he had been through a hard time because his ex was taking legal action. And I also know he parted ways with his management. So I know he had been going through a hard time. I do feel like his last post on Snapchat, I thought there was a sadness in his eyes when I watched it. So I don't know if he was going through a hard time because we don't actually know, you know, nothing's been actually said what has happened exactly yet.
But it was, I mean, it's fair to say he's had a difficult few years and some drink issues and all the rest of it, which is what you get with these pop stars, which is the tragedy of it all, that people want this fame, but it often leads to so much heartache.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think on the outside it all looks, you know, so glamorous, and the X Factor, it's such a hype, and back in the day as well, it was massive, and, you know, he came out of the band and had a solo career, and, you know, I do feel like maybe Harry had more of a better solo career. So you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but you're right, Stephen, I think it's a lot of pressure, and he was very open about his problems with alcohol and mental health as well. So you just don't know what's going on. And for me personally, I wonder if there is enough support when you've come off a big show like X Factor. You know, still these years later, it must take a toll. So to see this sad news, we don't know exactly what is going on. I'm sure it's going to come out hour by hour. But at the moment, we just know that it is absolutely heartbreaking.
It is, Hayley, and you can't help but think about his family and his son. He's got a 7-year-old son, hasn't he, with Cheryl, and also his former bandmates. I mean, how must they be feeling? He was in Argentina to support Niall Horan, wasn't he?
That's right, and I feel like when you've come together on a big show like that, you know, you are like family. You really are. That is your family. And us watching it, we feel like we know the band because you've seen everything in the papers. It's been splashed all over the papers. You're right, when he had that very high-profile relationship with Cheryl, you know, they were front page all the time. So you feel like you've got to know them. So the band members, I can't imagine how they must be feeling. And you're right, he was over there to actually watch Niall and go and support him. And there was videos that I've watched of him over at the concert. So I have no idea. I know he had 2 older sisters. I know he's very close to his family. I haven't personally interviewed him, but I know a lot of my friends that are showbiz reporters have, and they've said he always had time for them. He always was very down to earth. And the biggest thing was he was a family man. And I actually saw a clip of him where they said to him, how would you like to be remembered? It was actually a question that was thrown to him. And he said, I just want to be remembered as a nice guy. And he really was a nice guy. And that's how he came across. Very genuine, very laid back, extreme talent, incredible voice. I remember his first audition, and Simon Cowell actually said, wow, you know, they spotted the star in him. Amazing talent. He also did a lot of the songwriting for One Direction, and at times he took the front lead. So what a talent and what a loss, and just devastating.
It's interesting, isn't it, looking at these live pictures now from the hotel, that, I mean, there will be people watching who think, well, you know, this isn't my era, this isn't my type of music. But what we have to bear in mind is just how big One Direction came. I mean, globally, they were massive, which is quite unusual these days.
I totally agree. A lot of people go on X Factor and you're like, oh, what's happened to them now? But, you know, I'd just like to point out One Direction, they got American Music Awards, 7 nominated for 10, Billboard 6 nominated for 12 Brit Awards, winning 7. They won an MTV VMA Award, huge global award ceremonies. You know, they won 2018 Choice Awards, nominated for 31. So they had mega success. They were mega stars and they still had a lovely bond between them, which I think is really nice in a band, because often you hear of fallouts and stuff, but, you know, the fact that he was over there supporting his ex-bandmate, you know, was a really lovely thing. But yeah, it's just very devastating. And I know a lot of people have tweeted. Charlie Puth has posted a photo on his story. I'm shocked right now. Liam was always so kind to me. He was one of the first major artists I got to work with. I cannot believe he's gone. Paris Hilton described the news as so upsetting, sending love and condolences to friends and family, amongst many people that have woken up to this shocking news this morning.
Yeah, and Dermot O'Leary has also paid tribute, hasn't he? Who was, of course, the X Factor presenter at the time when Liam was auditioning.
Yes, I can imagine for the X Factor family, for Simon Cowell, he put the band together, you know, and I think the fact that they had so much success really just shows what talent that they saw in the band, because to just put a singer out there, I think, is one thing to have success, but to keep a band together and have, like I say, all those awards, I think is absolutely incredible. I love their songs personally, I still do, and I loved Liam's solo career as well. So, like I say, I'm still in shock to even report this.
OK. Hayley, good to see you this morning.
Thanks, Hayley.
Thanks very much indeed.
It's such shocking news, isn't it? 31 is absolutely no age.
This is the problem. These people that go from the world of showbiz often go at a young age, don't they? It's this tragedy of success at a very early age, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, he catapulted to fame, didn't he, at 16? And he did an interview a few years ago where he said, if I'd have understood how big things were going to get, I would have maybe been more prepared. He wasn't prepared at all. He says, I wouldn't change it for the world, but I wasn't prepared for it. So,
it's a shame.
Shocking news, and our thoughts,
sad.
obviously, with his family. Well, let's start with this tragic news, shall we? Liam Payne has died, aged 31.
I think a lot of people will be very shocked waking up this morning if they didn't hear the news last night. Terribly sad. He was out in Argentina, seems to have fallen or had some kind of accident at this hotel room. Only 31. Everybody remembers him from, you know, from his singing days. And I think it just goes to show how difficult it is after you've been, you know, absolutely kind of megastar, sort of finding a place in the world and finding your sense of kind of meaning and what you do next with a lot of money and a lot of fame and all of that. So really, really sad news, and terribly sad for his family, for his young child, who I think is 7, that he had with Cheryl Cole. Cheryl Vicini, what are we calling Cheryl now?
Just Cheryl now.
Just Cheryl.
No
they have a
surname.
7-year-old son, and I just, you know, I think every parent will be imagining how you tell your child about that as well. So.
Yeah, it's horrific, Andy, isn't it? But it's also, of course, there are questions. Of course, people are going to want to know how this has happened.
Yeah, and there are reports about what the causes might have been. I think it's just...
You just don't know at this stage.
Don't know at this stage. I suppose what I'd say is it's hard to overstate what phenomenon One Direction were and still are for so many people. I mean, for that demographic, particularly of kind of girls of a particular age, they were absolutely huge. And you can talk about the number of records bands sells, the number of number ones they have, but the absolute fanatical kind of fandom that they inspired was like no other band probably in my lifetime, I don't think.
Yeah, it's very much like the Beatles.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much. And you can see fans coming from all across Argentina. Look, you can see these pictures now, gathering outside the hotel. And this morning we've seen live pictures of them lighting candles. They've got photos of him that they're putting outside. I mean, essentially a shrine is being constructed outside of this hotel, which just goes to demonstrate, doesn't it, the stardom of Liam Payne.
Yeah, I mean, a real outpouring of grief. And I mean, as Emma said, it's just so, when someone that young dies in such tragic circumstances, it's just absolutely awful.